For someone whose entire career has been focused on joy, why a podcast on pain? Because these stories need to be told. A good phoenix rising out of the ashes story reminds us all that not only can we survive, we can thrive. And when we emerge, we're different. That's the alchemy of pain. Welcome to another edition of The Alchemy of Pain. This is a podcast where we talk to people who've been through tough stuff and they made it through the other side, oftentimes better and serving the world in new ways perhaps they might not have imagined before. Pain leading to purpose. I'm excited. And if any of you are science fiction lovers, you are going to love my guest today. You probably already do love her. Pat Tallman. You will recognize her face from 1990's Night of the Living Dead, or her appearances on Babylon 5, or over 50 appearances in the Star Trek franchises. But she's here today to talk about her story. Pat Tallman, we're so glad to have you here today.
Oh, that is so sweet, Brenda. Thank you for that lovely intro. That was really sweet.
Well, because I had to say it because everybody would be watching and saying, I know her from somewhere. So let's get that right out front. And you've done many more things. You are an actress and still a working actress, but how are you primarily serving in the world today?
I love how you put that, because I hadn't thought of it exactly like that before, but I have shifted into personal development, and I want to share with my fellow nerdy people, as I consider myself a huge sci-fi and fantasy nerd, about what I've learned in personal development, because it saved my life. And I think that it's really important for me to, I just feel this sense of purpose about, I must share this, I must do this. And I'm finding it way more fulfilling and important to me than my acting is anymore. I feel, I don't know, it's a different thing. I miss working all the time, but as a woman in my mid 60s in Hollywood, the roles are few and far between. And I'm fond of saying to my friends, if I had put the energy, the resources, my know-how into my own business 30 years ago, I would be a billionaire by now, instead of always beholden to someone else for a job, which you are as an actor, as a journeyman actor like me. Like, you might notice me, you might not, but I've made my living as an actor. I'm very fortunate to have done that. But now I feel this is more important, talking about personal development. Thank you for your work too, Brenda, by the way.
Oh, it's
Very
a joy.
important.
And though I don't have the thousands of followers that you do, but I have a bit of a nerdy community as well. I always call myself a word nerd. I love words. I love speaking them. I love writing them. And I was deeply struck when you said it saved my life. Can we start there? What do you mean? Literally? Figuratively?
I
In what way
do.
did personal development save your life? And does that relate to the pain that changed you forever?
Yes, ma'am. About, let's see, I don't know, a little more than 12 years ago, uh, I had been working so hard. I've always worked so hard. And I felt like it was all up to me. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, especially as women. We have to do everything. I had a son, single mom, and I'm trying to navigate the entertainment industry. I'd done everything I knew to do. That was the right thing to do. And I hit a wall. My life collapsed around me. I couldn't figure out why. I had a series of betrayals, both financial and romantic. I had business partners go south on me. I was traumatized around trying to make enough money to support my kid and myself, keeping my little house, and not being able to serve as an actor the way I knew I could, because I wasn't being given the opportunities by the powers that be in the entertainment industry for one reason or another. That's the way it was for me. I hope it's changing for women now. But so I had been doing everything I thought was correct to do. I was a good person. I worked my ass off. I started my own businesses, helping other actors market themselves. I formed alliances, and I didn't seem to have the depth of friendship. I was choosing the wrong people in romantic relationships that were abusive, not just physically abusive. That did happen, and I got past that stage. But then they were emotionally manipulative and abusive. They took advantage of me, financially destituted me, and then my second business partner, who I really cared about, a woman, betrayed me big time in my business, stole the business out from under me, kind of thing. And I just was flabbergasted by all of this. Kept thinking, I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. What is the world doing to me? I suck. I must suck as a human being. Who am I? And the only thing, I went through a couple of weird betrayals all in a row, and I really thought, I am such a loser. I must. I don't know why I'm alive. And if I wasn't a single mother, I don't know that I would have made it through that. I mean, I really, really thought, there's no point. There's absolutely no point. The world sucks. People suck. I suck. I'd be here, but I had this
I
beautiful
interview a
son.
lot of people from all different walks of life, and I hear often that there has to be a compelling why to claw your way through. And for many people, the why is someone that they love dearly, like your child. And while you
Exactly
maybe
right.
didn't know your own value, you valued the impact that your life or the loss of your life would have had on your child. So you kept going forth this thing,
Yeah.
this culture, this happily ever after culture that lies to us and
Mm.
says, if I do A and B, C is going to happen. And then we realize, oh no, baby, it doesn't work that way.
Oh,
Very disconcerting and very disappointing. And you start to say, wait a
yeah.
minute, life is not fair. And yet in the wrestling, we come to conclusions. And you clearly wrestled, you
Oh,
fought.
for so
When
long.
shift? When did it shift for you that you stopped entertaining, I'm a loser, I suck, this is not working? What shifted and how?
I had a psychotic break. I had the most interesting experience, painful and awful, but really interesting. There was this straw hit the camel's back, and I broke. And what that meant, what that looked like, was I couldn't talk. I couldn't think. I didn't understand what other people were saying to me. I could only lay in my room and sob. I couldn't eat. I lost 20 pounds in about 4 weeks. And my son was terrified. He didn't know, and I couldn't communicate. I didn't understand. He'd get friends on the phone and try, and I couldn't communicate. Slowly, I started to come back I started being able to talk and try to communicate. I got some help from a doctor, and who just got me to sleep, who gave me, I think it was a Xanax. And I was able to actually sleep. And that's when I started to come back to myself a little bit. And then I knew I had to do something. I was in the bottom of a pit, but there was a glimmer of light at the very top of this that represented a way out, or like there was some hope. It makes me emotional even now just talking about it. It is the most extraordinary experience I wouldn't wish on the world, but in the end, I got a chance to change my life like that, because I broke so completely, and I realized what I'm doing is not working. What do I do now? And I started to become very teachable, is the word that comes to mind. I happen to be around loosely a 12-step program called Al-Anon, which is for people like myself who grew up around addiction. And my mother was medically hooked on pills because of her cancer, and she did eventually die when I was young. And then my father was an alcoholic. So as a kid that grew up in a certain situation, I had developed certain patterns that were a survival mechanism for the young, but as an adult were killing me. And in Al-Anon, all I could do was crawl into a meeting, and I could sit there and sob for the entire meeting and nobody cared, because that's what happens in 12-step programs. People come in really broken and find their way. And the next thing I did, as I just did what they told me, because I'd become very teachable, like, I don't know how to survive this. Do this. Show up at meetings. Do your morning meditation. Write your gratitude list. These things that I would have thought were so freaking stupid and simple that couldn't possibly help me in this desperate situation I was in. And yet those were the things that started to heal me. These very simple things. Learning how to breathe. And I then knew, okay, this is really interesting. And so this is Al-Anon. 12-step programs are a personal development system. And you are kind of funneled through the 12 steps. They're all very much in an order for a purpose. And then I started to be able to, it was sort of the advent of the online workshops started happening. There was a writer, life coach named Martha Beck, who I had followed she was a writer in O Magazine, had a column. I've read her book, and I ended up meeting her and being part of a group that she coached, and further saved my life. And then I couldn't afford anymore, so I had to go out and continue to find coaches, and I would take free workshops and work where I could, making a little bit of money here and there so I could afford the healing process that I needed to experience. And that's what was the process for me to kind of get out of that pit and start to feel like there's change is possible. I can change, I can learn, I can get back on my feet. And meanwhile, this is the other thing I really wanted to share, was when you get into action and you are so teachable, the universe kind of steps on the path with you. And these weird synchronicities would happen. Like when I really needed some money, all of a sudden somebody said, hey, I need $1,000. I'll pay $1,000 for someone to come paint my room. And I'm like, okay, I've never painted a room before, but I could use the money. And I just became very, open to these experiences. Then I had someone help me write a book. And my first check was $35,000, which was life-changing for me. These things came in. I didn't even know to look for them, but I really believe that we are part of something so much bigger than ourselves, and that we are a part of it. I mean, we're of this. This is not separate from us. We can charge ourselves by connecting to the universe, whatever that looks like for you. And then suddenly things start to align, and they lead you figure out what your next right step is, and the next right step, and the next right step. You don't have to know the whole path. You can have a dream, you can have a desire, you can have an idea. You don't have to know how to get there. Just do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and then things start to meet you on the path. But I think what happens, Brenda, when we get so broken, emotional again, it's hard to get up and take a step. How do you even do that when you're so broken? So
And
that's what
that is who this podcast is for. So I celebrate and honor the emotion because
yeah.
it's not pretty. When I often
So
talk to
messy.
my
So
audience,
messy.
I use the butterfly analogy to end every
Yeah.
podcast because if you've ever seen a butterfly trying to get out of that chrysalis, it's not graceful. It's violent. They're trying to get the
Horrible.
heck out of there.
Do you know that this, I love this too, that, and Martha Beck was the first person that shared this info, that when a butterfly, when you have your caterpillar, and the caterpillar cocoons itself to transform, what it doesn't just sprout wings, it dissolves into soup, it dissolves into gel, it becomes formless, and then it develops into something completely different. To me, that was kind of like, whoa, that's what happened to me. I dissolved. I had to become wordless. I had to become helpless to become humble enough to put down my armor and to say, okay, I've been I have been a warrior. I know we all have to be warriors in the world at some point. But I was carrying so much heavy armor, I couldn't put it down anymore. I didn't remember how to put it down. And I had to have it all ripped off all at once, which kind of left me feeling like I was flayed alive. And it was horrendous. I don't recommend it. But the upside was that I got it all over with very quickly. It just, I had no choice.
I appreciate your breaking it down to very small steps out of the darkness because that's manageable for anyone. And see, this is the thing, viewers, listeners, you might look at someone like Pat Tallman and her resume, her credentials, her IMDb account, and say, wow, okay, but we're all human beings. We're actually spiritual beings having a human
Very.
experience, and
That's it.
working it out is different for everybody, but nobody gets a free pass. If you want to grow, if you want depth and meaning, you don't get a hall pass from pain
Right.
and suffering. And so this is what we are given, and it's how we respond to it. And even it's just a baby step out of the darkness, you're on your way. You're on your way.
That's it. And the other thing, the big thing I'd like to share and say is that as an actor and a stunt woman, I've faced fear on a regular basis. I thought I understood fear really well, but I had no idea that fear is actually our ally, and we've cast it in this role of being something to avoid and something to fight, when actually I call fear my fear dragon, and I try to keep him small, like Norbert in Harry Potter. When he first hatches and he's little, he's annoying, he'll bite you, he'll burn your face, but you can manage him. But my fear had grown into like season 3 Drogon from Game of Thrones. He could step on a house, and he had me pinned. I was decimated by this dragon, and I didn't know how to get him smaller. And the analogy I come up with is I sat down and had a cup of tea with him. I'm like, okay, I give up. I can't fight this. What do you want from me? And it wasn't pretty. Talk about not pretty. There were times when I would be laying on the floor of my office screaming in fury, like, what else can I do? Oh! Just furious, sobbing. I don't know what my neighbors thought. It's like just a mess. But in that conversation, I learned something. It was trying to tell me all along, you're on the wrong path. You're doing the wrong thing. You're trying too hard. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not loving your kid. You're spending all this time trying to provide for him, but you're not there for him. I had to listen to some very hard shit. But the benefit is that I became friends with my dragon. And now when he starts to get big, I listen. And that's what brings them back down. That's what makes them small and manageable. Oh, you've got this huge thing. You think it's too much. That's very unhelpful. That is just an unhelpful way to look at it. The dragon is there to keep you safe. That's all it wants to do. So you must be kind of you're thinking in a way that's not helpful, or you're hanging around people that aren't good for you, or you're in a job that's abusive. Your body needs some help. There's something the dragon's trying to tell you. And that's, if you just sit down and have a cup of tea, have a conversation, you're going to become light years. Instead of what you said, instead of just reacting, Brenda, you used the word respond, and I love that word. Respond means we have some space between just reacting like an animal would react in fear to responding as the person you really want to be for your friends, for your family, for your kids, for your job, you want for yourself. How do I want to respond to this, as opposed to just being triggered, as the kids say all the time now?
Well, it's so interesting. And I'm not a clinician. I have some hypotheses. And I interviewed Simon Bailey recently, and he said, what you don't deal with will deal with you. And when we think about childhood trauma, and I also think everybody's got some form or fashion of it, and it creates this separation between our outer being and our inner being. And this disconnect causes us to not be able to hear that little voice on the inside, which ends up having to be a roar or knock us upside the head because we're so disconnected from ourselves. And getting in touch with who we really are, I believe, listening to that when it is a still small voice, is where our superpower is. But sometimes it has to roar because we're not listening.
That's exactly it. Everything you just said is exactly what I think. It's very, very true. The truth and love speak very quietly. And fear screams and yells because it must. It's trying to keep us alive as a species, but we no longer have those saber-tooths outside your cave. And so it makes everything so freaking scary.
So
Yeah, I laugh about it, but it's not funny when you're in the throes of it.
Tell me about your use of the word magical, because I see that woven through materials. Tell me about magical. And you even have magical escapes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Magical.
Thank you for asking that. I use the word magical because in my experience, life was hard. My parents had it rough. My mom died young. It was hard. Shit was hard. So I just thought that's the way it was. But once I started to learn about personal development and the idea of connecting to your highest wisdom or the universe or whatever you call it, that connecting to the piece of you, I believe, is kind of your soul. That's more than just this body and the physical experience, which is also fantastic and a blessing and a miracle. But it's that the soul itself is made of something else that comes from somewhere else, in my mind. I mean, I believe that. And if you wish to be guided by a higher purpose and your highest wisdom, connecting past what you may know in your brain right now, then life starts to feel magical. This stuff just starts to happen when you really need it. That's what I want to convey to everyone. Listen, I'm not religious. I'm the opposite of religious, but now I consider myself a deeply spiritual person because I believe in this connection to life and to the wisdom in nature, and that we are so much more than just this human experience. When we start to go ahead, and you don't even have to do it perfectly, because I wasn't, and you don't have to believe in it entirely, because I didn't, and it still starts to work for you. It's very generous, this piece of you that is so much more than you think you know. That's the other piece. We think we have to know everything. We think we have to control everything. Well, you can't. And how limiting is that? That's sad that you feel that's how I felt. Like how sad that poor woman thought she had to know everything to take care of herself and her son. So that's the word magical, because to me it was really astounding how things started to show up to help get me out of that pit of despair that I couldn't have even thought of. It just was remarkable. You can use that anytime. You don't have to be in a crisis to have that kind of wonderful experience. You really can shift the way you look at things, and life just starts to be so much more beautiful and joyful, peaceful, possible. You can go for these desires. And now I really believe that your desires are meant for you, because it's meant to put you on a path. And on that path, you're going to meet people, you're going to learn new things, you're going to become this person that has this life you so desire, to have the thing you desire. You're not supposed to think, oh, that's for somebody else. No, it's for you. If you desire it, it's for you. There's a reason for that. That's magical to me. And before I started teaching personal development and leading workshops, I knew I wanted to take people on trips to get them outside of the regular life so that they could experience something extraordinary. And that is what I called quest retreats. Like, we're on a quest together, like the Fellowship in the Lord of the Rings. We're on a quest. And during this time together, we make new friends. We're in an amazing place, so you get to experience that. And then I drop in the physical, the personal development along the way. We could journal together. We talk about our experiences. We play with the magic, saying, okay, what do we want to manifest today? What do we want to bring in? When we were in Africa, we used that a lot for animals. So who wants to see what? Okay, I want to see a cheetah today. All right, let's see a cheetah. Not only did we see a cheetah, we saw her 6 cubs. It's like that kind of stuff just happens. It's really, really fun to play with the
and
magic.
For some people, that might be a wonderful first step. Take a trip, get out
of
your normal environment, and with a catalyst, a coach with you that can help you see things in a different light. I love the saying, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
Exactly.
And believing that this is a benevolent universe,
yes,
or that it sucks,
yes, determines
everything.
It will color that. You can, whatever you believe will be so. That's going to be your experience. It's really hard to shift it. I know. I'm not saying that it's always easy, but it is simple. It's just not necessarily easy. And I do, and I know you do this too, Brenda, is that you help people start to shift that and to choose to see things differently, to choose to use your own mutant powers to create the life you wish to experience, instead of just being a victim and being blown all over into rocks and trees and having this terrible time. It's not to say that life isn't challenging. I think that's something to accept, that being a human being on planet Earth is chaos, and we don't know when we can't control. But what we can control is how we perceive it and what we want to get out of it.
Drop the mic. That is so the truth. And yes, and there are layers too. Because I have thought, okay, I've made peace with all the crap that happened to me. I'm good. And then something will come up and I'll realize I'm still
Yeah.
pissed off that it
Right.
happened.
Right.
Who am I pissed off at? I realized recently I was kind of mad at God still,
Yeah.
you know, and because I am a believer in God.
Right.
And I
Hmm.
would always encourage people, that there is a blessing in believing. And yet I was mad. And I came to terms with that and it gutted me. I'm like, wow, I'm literally
Oh,
saying, help me, but saying, ooh,
yeah.
wait a minute.
So you got to push me, pull you going on. You're saying help me, but I'm also so pissed. I'm
Yeah.
so angry. And so you're kind of tugging. And maybe if any of you have ever felt that way, the question is, what am I meant to learn? What am I meant? How am I supposed to understand this? And let those answers start to come in, because they will. One of the things I share with my group constantly is ask for what you want. Absolutely. Let the universe know. Put that in your meditation. Set your intention, and then know the universe is like, great. So glad you asked. Here's what's standing in your way.
Mm-hmm.
And now
Mm-hmm.
you get to work on the stuff that has prevented you from having what it is you just asked for. Perhaps it's a mindset shift. Perhaps it's a change of your circumstances. Perhaps you need to learn something. But the universe is just saying, yes, you can have this, but here is what is in your way. And in a way, that's so exciting, because it's like, oh, I just need to do this thing. I just need to learn this thing, or I just need to forgive this situation, or I fill in the blank. And then I am on my way. That's amazing.
It
Those
is.
answers are gold.
There are new levels of freedom available.
Ooh, I love that.
If you realize that you're not free. Like you can't think, okay, I'm good. I'm doing it all. I'm meditating, I'm praying, I'm exercising, I'm eating right, I'm taking Geritol. If you remember the old commercial,
Oh,
right?
I do. Yeah, sure.
Doing it all right. And I'm banging my head against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing it all right. There is always something new and I feel like, here we are, we're both women in our 60s, but I feel like continually learning keeps me young.
And it's more fun. I mean, if you think you already have it all, and nobody ever does, but if you think you do, doesn't life kind of starts to get monotone, doesn't it? It's you lose the color. Whereas if you're always looking for the next way you can grow, or the
Mm.
next thing you want to create, it keeps things joyful, interesting. Um, and you have I mean, I think that's a basic human need to grow. And if we, for some reason, stop growing, if we think we can't grow anymore, or we're exhausted, then it's an opportunity for rest, and then to realign with, who do I want to be now?
Mm.
Maybe there's a change coming for you. And sometimes change is disconcerting. It's disconcerting. That's okay. That's why you need community, right, Brenda? That's why you need people. You need people
Encouraging.
understand this.
Yes. And Pat, I
Mm-hmm.
could talk to you all day long. Can you tell? I mean, so
Yeah, this is fun.
we've thrown the script out. How can people find you and follow you and perhaps work
Oh,
with you?
I'm on the interwebs. I'm Instagram and Facebook. You just use my name and it'll show up. And then I have an email list. I send out a monthly magazine. I call it Motivational Magic Magazine. I try to send out things that are uplifting and little frameworks you can use and things you can think about. And I also have a travel article in it from wherever I am, because my husband and I live out of suitcases right now. We've been traveling the world since April 2022. It's like got rid of everything. And so let's see. and then I have what I call the magical living community. And that is very exciting. I've got something coming up very soon, an offer I'm making to get new members um, into what we call the year of magical living. And every year is a monthly, for 12 months, we have a topic. We work that topic. We have special guests. We hang out together. We have gaming guild and watch parties as well. and, and I have this huge library of other workshops and things to participate in. So I'd love for you, if you signed up for the magazine, and I can, then you would find out about when we put forth that offer for our next membership drive. Thanks
So
for asking, Brenda.
Oh, absolutely. Because I'm going to sign up for them. I
Yeah.
want some of that. Give me inspiration. You can never have too much. So there are two other things I want to ask you. One is
Okay.
about releasing your inner badass, because I've seen
Mm,
that verbiage. And the final question is, what would you say to someone who's at that breaking point to encourage them?
mm,
So let's
mm.
talk about the inner badass, first of all. You think everybody's got one?
Absolutely. You are probably way more fierce than you think you are. I do have folks in my group that seem at first glance very timid, and they don't think of themselves as being tough. They think of themselves as being very fragile. And then once we get to know you, I can start, are you kidding me? Look at what you've done. Look at all the things you've gone through already. And you're still here. Come on, wow. And I also love to share with, as humans, we have certain superpowers that the other organisms on this planet do not have. And we all evolved together, kids. We evolved. We took different branches. We're not the same as that cheetah we saw in Africa, but she evolved along with us, and she can't do what we can do, which sometimes is so simple. And I always want people to understand the two biggest ones are the way you can control your breath. Animals can't do that at all. And our visualization, the magic of visualization, how powerful that is. And unless you're using that mutant power to get you where you want to go, it's using its own mutant power to keep you in your cave. And it's really hard to get out of that cave of complacency and into a life of your dreams if you don't harness that power of visualization. Those are the two I want to drop in there. As far as if you're feeling like you're at a crisis point, or if you're approaching one, or if you've been through one and you're trying to rebuild, one of the most powerful things you can do is to find community that understands what you've been through or where you're at, and kind of support you while you go through your process and become the butterfly you were meant to be, because you're going to need to cocoon and dissolve for a bit. It's just to let go of some of the old thought patterns and your old ways of believing, to be able to embrace the magnificent creature you are and the power you do have. You may not realize you do have. So community is really important. And if that's not of interest, then how about finding a coach? You've got Brenda, you've got other people I'm sure that you've come across if you're listening to this podcast. Find a coach that can help you. Believe me, it's worth the investment. And it'll move you through the process so much faster.
I
Yeah.
am very grateful to the therapists who have helped me through
Amazing.
patches of my life. And,
Absolutely.
I hope this doesn't sound crass, Pat, but I am so grateful that you had your psychotic break.
Me too. Me
And
too.
that
I
is
couldn't go on the way I was. I mean, it was
not sustainable.
not sustainable. It wasn't a happy life. I wasn't realizing my potential.
And now you're living your purpose.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's way more fun and interesting than where I was before.
Well, I am honored that you joined us today on The Alchemy of Pain. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me.
It was a
Really, I
joy.
appreciate it.
Thank everybody for tuning in to this edition of The Alchemy of Pain. As I end every podcast, and I love that Pat added the embellishment of what happens inside that chrysalis where you dissolve. Boy, that was so good. I
Mm.
end every podcast saying that the chrysalis is a dark place. But if you keep pressing, you're creating strength in your wings so you can fly.
Ooh,
Keep
I love
pressing
that.
on. We're rooting for you. Have a great day.